Guys, what is going on? This is Pal CHH, and today we're talking about one of the biggest crimes in horror history. This is something that permeates till this very day, and it was one of the biggest, oh my god, are you kidding me moments when it happened back in 2013. Some of you may know this story, and others may not. So settle in, and let's tell this story. So we have to go back and give you a little bit of a history lesson. So back in the VHS days, you might be surprised that there were what could be considered boutique labels back then too. Now, of course, the format had movies coming out from all the major studios, but before that, before VHS really became a truly household thing, there were these interesting labels that were putting out all these wacky, crazy horror films. And they were also known as what's called the big box releases. In today's world, big box releases, anything that's original and in decent to good condition, goes for a lot of money. These are companies like Midnight Video, which we've actually just done wax melts, making sense for these, by the way. And one of the most prominent ones that had some of the biggest titles at the time was none other than a company called Wizard Video. Now, Wizard Video was a big box company that started putting out all these weird and creepy and big horror movies all at the same time. Some of the most notable releases Wizard Video ever did was I Spit on Your Grave, Zombie, and the biggest horror movie of all time, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, this is a cool little footnote in history, was back in the day, they actually had charts for VHS releases like the way there are for music charts for #1 singles and things like that. And believe it or not, Texas Chainsaw Massacre moved a lot of units back in the day from Wizard Video. Now, you might be wondering, who owned Wizard Video? What was Wizard Video? Wizard Video was a company created by Mr. Charles Band. That's right, old Chuckles, our old pal Charlie. I'm sure you had a feeling that maybe he was going to pop up in a video about controversy. Yes, Charles Band made a company called Wizard Video. Now, there's some things that are important to note when talking about this company. Now, these are things that I can't myself prove, but I'm going to tell you what Charles said in regards to his movies with Wizard Video specifically. Charles had done other stuff with home video before with a company called Media Entertainment, which would soon become Media Home Entertainment, and after Charles was exited or forced out of the company, depending on who you ask, that company went on to be the biggest home video company of all time. A lot of the horror movies you have on your shelf were Media Home Entertainment tapes. Stuff like some of the Halloween films, things like the A Nightmare on Elm Street films. Media was everywhere. So many movies were put out by Media Home Entertainment on VHS. So after the split from Media with Charles Band, he started Wizard Video, which focused primarily on horror films. Now, here's something of interest that Charles Band has said in regards to all of his Wizard Video releases. Now, this is important because it's going to go on with what we have to talk about later in this video. Charles Band claimed in a video in 2013 that when he licensed his movies on Wizard Video, he licensed them in perpetuity. Now, the word perpetuity means basically forever, meaning he can release them for as long as he wanted, which in essence means that if he was going to put out VHSs today of his movies, that legally he has that option. There are a lot of things that are interesting about this, because here's an example of something that has caused a lot of controversy with Mr. Band. Now, the film I Spit on Your Grave, now that came out from Wizard Video in America. But if you talk to the director about that movie, now he claims that Charles Band had absolutely zero right to sell that movie overseas. Charles Band disagrees. Now, the director of that film said that when he found out that Charles Band was selling I Spit on Your Grave overseas, he filed a lawsuit against Charlie, claiming he had no legal right to sell his movie anywhere outside of the United States of America. Charles makes it sound like he had every right in the world to do that, but here's the kicker. The director of I Spit on Your Grave claimed that they settled out of court and he thought he got what was a fair chunk of the money made from overseas. He comes to find out after the fact, when this was legally done, that Charles had really ripped him off and only paid him like an eighth of what he should have been paid. Wizard would last for the majority of the 1980s, but by the time Charlie started Empire Pictures and then soon Full Moon, the company was then bought by another company company, and Wizard Video basically went away. So here's where the story gets interesting. Years later, up around the early 2010s, I had noticed myself that the VHS market was something that was exploding. Me, I was always on the outskirts of all this. I've always been a Laserdisc person. I love collecting Laserdisc. I love the format. To say that the VHS market was not 1000x of what the Laserdisc market was would be to lie. People love VHS tapes. They are so collectible. There are certain titles that maybe weren't as printed as high as other ones, and that would obviously mark up the value. Well, guess which line of VHS tapes are among the most valuable of all time? You named it, Wizard Video Big Boxes. Wizard Video Big Boxes are very, very collectible. Now, certain titles are not as expensive as others. Clearly, there's a lot of titles out there that you could get probably at a fair price today, although still expensive. Movies like Zombie Lake, movies like Headless Eyes or Demoniac. Well, maybe Demoniac might be a little bit expensive, but you get my point. These are titles that are, even in today's world, I don't think a lot of people have seen Zombie Lake, which I don't recommend because that's not a good movie, although the artwork for the big box VHS looks incredible. And Headless Eyes, I don't think I've ever had a conversation with anybody about Headless Eyes. Here's where things get interesting. While the VHS market is exploding in 2013, all of a sudden, Charles Band does this big video on YouTube, which is still up till this very day. Charles Band starts to sit down and talk about his history with home video and gets into the world of Wizard Video, talking about the titles that were out during this time and how some of them became very, very sought after, talking about his journey with home video and how he created Wizard Video. And all of a sudden in this video, Charles Band goes on to say that around this time, he was clearing out some of his warehouses where he housed a lot of the stuff that he's owned throughout the years, including stuff with his companies. And interestingly enough, before I finish the story, it's important to note that Mr. Band had claimed already that he was aware of the fact that these Wizard tapes were expensive and collector's items and people were paying for them. I find it very telling that Mr. Band was willing to admit beforehand that he was aware that these things are now collector's items and worth money. He then goes on to describe that in one of the warehouses that he had, he found boxes worth thousands and thousands of Wizard Big Box originals. It's very important to note originals, because there was a way Charlie could have done this that would have escaped all the controversy that he went through at the time, but he didn't. Now, in this video, it's very interesting because if you watch it years later, you can see Mr. Band has a little bit of trouble looking at the camera as he's telling the story. He kind of says his words a little quieter than usual with the way he typically talks. It's clear that Mr. Band doesn't exactly believe the words that are coming out of his mouth. Now listen, I think Charles Band has done way more good than bad when it comes to this stuff, so I think most people, including me, give him a pass for some of these shady, funny dealings he's had. Here's the fact. If you watch that video, you can clearly see that Charlie is having a little bit of trouble getting the story out straight. The eye contact with the camera is a little less than usual. You see how I'm looking straight at you while I'm telling the story? He has a little bit of trouble with that in that video. He goes on to describe that he found thousands and thousands of pristine Wizard Video big box cases in this warehouse. Now, he says that there were no tapes or clamshells that were in these boxes, but the boxes were pristine. He pulled all of them out and began to describe a business plan that he had. He would start to sell all these big boxes that were sold as originals. Remember that. Originals. A lot of people, as soon as they heard this news, had a lot of pause with it. They didn't believe what was true or what was not. But I think a lot of people had trouble believing that all of a sudden he found thousands of these boxes in a warehouse. Well, before you knew it, he started to roll out some of these boxes. Now, before you're wondering, of course, the boxes that were not found at that time initially were the biggest titles. I Spit on Your Grave Zombie, and you named it, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think bootleg or not, that would have had people excited had they had the opportunity to find Texas Chainsaw Massacre big box VHS boxes. So, of course, those weren't found in those boxes at the time. All of a sudden, these start to come out and people start buying them. Now, there are people on YouTube that had covered this extensively. I'm going to give a huge shout out to a YouTuber, Paul Zamorelli, who has a channel called The Analog Archivist, who did side-by-side comparisons of one of the boxes he purchased from Mr. Band at that point and an actual original. I myself happen to have an original Wizard big box. Let's take a look at it. This is one I found at a thrift store. This is the Battle of the Last Panzer. Now, here's something to note. I don't have a repro of this movie, and I don't even know if they found the boxes for these in the warehouse. And you see how I can't help but already call it a repro. But this is an original. Something to note is how vibrant the colors are on this and how rich everything looks. The Wizard logo at the bottom is very much bright red. This does not look like it was any sort of scan. This looks like true art on here. The definition on everything is very, very crisp. I think the camera is doing a pretty good job of showing this. You'll notice the back, the images as well, there's a real crisp sharpness to them, although this is a black and white movie, and typically back in the day, to sell these old movies that are black and white movies, they would make incredible artwork to suck you in. Now, let's take a look at what's inside here. Now, back in the day, when they had these movies come out, they put them in these clamshells. Now, this one is this red clamshell. Now, here's what the VHS tape looks like that actually has the Wizard logo on it. So this was from a video store in Lafayette, Louisiana, which I live in North Louisiana, so the fact that this was available in North Louisiana in a town that I live near is pretty interesting. It's important that I show you this because I want you guys to see the difference from what's an actual, legitimate, original Wizard big box and a repro. I met Mr. Band at a convention and saw one of these repros on the table. I couldn't help myself. I decided I needed one. So now that we've seen what an original Wizard looks like, let's look at the ones that are found in the warehouse. Now, here you go. Now, maybe at first glance, you're saying to yourself, well, that doesn't look too bad. But if you'll look at these, look how much richer the Wizard logo is at the bottom. Look how much more vibrant the colors are. You guys are familiar with the artwork for Zombie. If you look at this, you can clearly see this is some sort of scan of artwork that is not good. You can even see, it's tough to see this on here, but you can almost see on the back where the words are, there's blotches of stuff that was kind of like X'd out or cleaned up. And the biggest giveaway that this is clearly a reproduction is the text. Now, again, guys like the Analog Archivist did a much better job showing these side by side and actually scanning these, but the text on the repros, again, I can't call them originals, look really blurry and out of focus, where the text on the original is extremely sharp, crisp, and super easy to read. Done very poorly. The interesting thing is when I saw this on the table, I offered 20 bucks for it, and they took it because they don't want to pack a lot of this stuff up. And it was Zombie, so I figured, what the hell, I may as well get a repro of a good movie, and I got the Zombie one. When I went to go meet Mr. Band, this was shrink-wrapped. And sure enough, when I had my stuff, he was willing to sign everything. He was very gracious. But there was shrink-wrap over this, and he goes, you're not going to open this up, right? You're going to keep this sealed since this is a big box, right? And you want me to just sign the top of that? I told him yes at the time, but I know why he did that. He didn't want me to inspect this thing further. Clearly, he thought he would pull the wool over my eyes on this. Now, I say this lovingly. I'm not upset about it. I knew exactly what I was buying. This is definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, a big box that was printed probably within the last 5 or 10 years when this whole thing started. Mr. Band went through some controversy when this came out. There were videos all over the place at the time of people saying there's no way that these are original boxes from the 80s. There was interesting things about the cardstock that was used that didn't feel the same, but he actually got an interview with Fangoria at the time where Mr. Band claimed that it would cost a fortune to try to print up these big boxes because you'd have to print up so many at a time, thousands and tens and 20s of thousands.
It's absurd that people think these boxes are fake. First of all, to print those boxes today, you would have to print 5,000 to 10,000 unit run. They were very expensive boxes to print back in the day. So it would be totally insane to print 5,000 to 10,000 units per title times 36 titles to sell a few hundred of them.
When in actuality, by 2013, there was companies out there and small businesses that were doing big box VHS releases on the level of 200 boxes. So clearly it doesn't cost that much because these small businesses couldn't afford to fork up that much money to just do a couple hundred. So he kind of got caught big time with this. The interesting thing is I think a lot of people, especially like me, bought one of these just because they thought it was fun, but this whole thing could have been avoided by Mr. Ben. All he had to do was say, hey guys, I see that the Wizard big box stuff is extremely collectible now and people love them. Obviously, I don't have any because That was years ago, but I think it would be fun if I tried to reprint some of these boxes. That way people that can't afford to buy originals could go online and buy a couple of these themselves just to feel like they have originals, even though they know it's not, and I'm not selling to you like it's not. He sold these as original boxes. Now, I think that these ended up tanking and people stopped buying them when the reviews came out. Till this very day, Mr. Ben claims that these are original boxes, that what I have in my hand is an original Wizard Video big box. Now, the interesting thing is what's on the inside. He did say that, of course, the VHS tapes and the clamshells were not in this warehouse. It was just these, the boxes. Decided I needed to put this on. So in here is just a blank looking VHS tape, as you can see. What's interesting is Zombie is on here, and before that, he actually puts those 2 videos that are on YouTube of him talking about finding these boxes in a warehouse that are original for the movie. The audacity to have this in your hands, which clearly shows that this is not original, but to put the VHS on here, the intro saying that you found these boxes. It's amazing. It's almost impressive how much he thought he was pulling the wool over our eyes. It's funny that you can still buy these till this very day, but this was one of the biggest controversies at the time, claiming that you found thousands of original Wizard Video big boxes in a warehouse and clearly selling something that looks like it was done in 2013. I hope you guys enjoyed this story. You can still buy some of these originals on the Full Moon site. To be fair, they are cheap. He does not have the audacity to try to charge you original prices. If you ever get bored or you have some expendable cash, you ought to get one just to see it for yourself, because I think some of you would get a kick out of it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time, because there's another crime in physical media history that I would love to talk about, and that movie is called Rocktober Blood. Get ready. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.